Chapter 30. Payton. The last thing I see is the terror on his face. Then I'm falling again. I'm going to drown. Death will meet me in this watery grave, grinning as he snatches my soul from the sea. When I felt that tele-ability release me, I wouldn't let my eyes leave his. I wanted Kai's gray gaze to be the last thing to take my breath away, not the ravenous waves. But something happened. I didn't hit the water. Kai lunged forward, nearly falling after me, and grabbed hold of the only thing he could. Adina's vest. I'm halted in the air once again, heart in my throat. Waves crash angrily below as Kai grunts, using every bit of his own strength to pull me upward. I hear the seams rip as my beloved vest begins splitting apart from my weight. Hands bound behind my back, I can do nothing but stare at the popping threads as Kai strains to lift me. Water drips from my drenched body, making the tearing vest slippery. Kai cries out, his arm bulging beneath a soaked sleeve. Another sharp tear from the thick fabric has me accepting my watery fate. Then, an arm wraps around my waist. Kai grits his teeth, pulling me up and over the railing. I'm pressed to his chest, my legs dragging over the wood railing. Blood rushes to my head, knees buckle. Kai guides me to the soaking deck with arms that dragged my soul from death's clutches. "I've got you," he pants against my ear. "I've got you, Pay." I press my head into his chest, tears leaking from my eyes. The storm rages around us, and still he holds me. His body quivers against mine, likely from exhaustion, but perhaps from the fading fear. I feel him shift, lifting an arm from around me. I'm too tired to track the movement, but when the rope is suddenly cut from my wrists, I realize that he's pulled his sword from the sailor's chest. Kai then gently stretches out my legs, cutting them free with a precise swipe of his blade. My dazed stare lands on the bodies littering the deck beside us. Both are covered in blood, their gazes glassily turned to the stormy sky. The realization that I'm likely sitting in their blood doesn't torment me as much as I thought it would. In fact, I believe I could bathe in their remains for being the reason my last piece of Adina is destroyed. And just like that, I'm one step closer to overcoming this choking fear of blood. Kai is suddenly crouching before me, turning my face from the dead bodies with a gentle press of his fingers against my jaw. "Are you all right?" As if unable to restrain himself, he cups my face in his hands before running swift fingers down my body to check for wounds. "I'm okay." My whisper is nearly lost in the howling wind, but I know he hears it when his eyes snap to mine. "I'm okay. I'm alive." Tears are pricking my eyes again. "Because of you." Water drips from his lashes, but it's the slight indent of his right dimple that my eyes fall to. "I promise to save your life again and again, and I will, whether you allow me to stay in it or not." I nod at him, vision blurry from my tears and the skies. "Now let's get you inside," he says, scooping me into his arms. I let him carry me into my cabin. Let him convince me to stay put. Let him retrieve my dagger from under the pillow and shove it into my hand. "This would have been useful tonight," I say weakly. He shakes his head, and I see the shade of anger that falls over his face. "They drugged me in my sleep. Then that illusionist cast you sleeping beside me so I'd see you when I woke up." "What?" I could almost laugh. They hardly seemed like the calculating type. My gaze drops to the dagger I wish I'd had with me. "But after they drugged you, I woke to the three of them dragging me from the room. I couldn't break free, couldn't move." I swallow at the reminder of my panic. "I was screaming, but no one heard me. Or no one wanted to hear me. Then they tied me up, gagged me, and, well, you know the rest." Rage rolls off him in waves as deadly as the ones colliding with the ship. "You're not safe here. I told Kit that. And where was the rest of the crew?" He begins pacing, fists clenched beside his drenched pants. "They were likely in on this in some way. And if I'm right, I will deal with them when we return to Ilya. But for now, we need them to get us back there in one piece." I offer him a nod. "That sounds like a good plan." What? He muses. You're okay with the spilling of so much blood? I run a finger down my blade before flicking my eyes up to his. It depends on whose blood. He's never kissed me so thoroughly. Payden, miss, I cannot tell you how shocked I was to hear what some of my men tried to do last night. I stare at the captain, my face blank as I await an apology. Kai had already charged into Tori's quarters last night to fill him in on the eventful evening. By the time he returned to the cabin, I was fast asleep, my dagger clutched in a fist. Now I sit in the captain's cushy dining area, my fingers laced atop the wooden table, an expression unamused. The sleepy sun fights to peek around the thick blanket of clouds, occasionally slipping a ray of light through one of the many windows. The room is larger than I'd expected, with wide shelves that line the walls, all filled with toppled-over trinkets and maps. A particularly worn piece of parchment curls against the wall opposite me, snagging my attention. It's decorated with an assortment of sketched cities and their accompanying flags. Well aware of what kingdoms live on our map, I begin to steer my gaze away before it stumbles over splotches of unfamiliarity. The scribbled world I'm staring at extends beyond Isram. My eyes narrow on the foreign masses of land bubbling from the shallows. No map I've ever studied has looked like this. I can't make out the names of these supposed kingdoms from where I'm sitting, but after reading about that mythical city of shadows, I'd bet Astrum has been wistfully scrawled atop an inky landmass. I almost smile. So this is what keeps sailors setting off for a horizon they likely won't meet before their doom. Adventure. The hope of a discovery thrilling enough to risk their mundane lives. They navigate from a different map, one inked in myths and legends. I admire their resilience in finding something to live for. I turn my attention back to where Tori sits at the head of the table, his splotchy face wearing an uncomfortable expression. Kai stands beside me, looking every bit my enforcer as he leans against the back of my chair. So you knew nothing of your crew's plan to murder their future queen? He asks smoothly. Crew? Tori bellows. No, sir. As we discussed last night in private, these 3 men acted alone. There were only a handful of sailors on that deck last night, and most of them were at the helm. We could hardly see a damn thing through that rain. He says this all rather quickly, as if forced to spit out the words before they're forgotten. I incline my head towards the captain. Why were so few of your men on the deck during such a storm? Tori's large hands wave with each of his words. My crew had been battling that storm for 2 days straight. They needed sleep, miss. He laughs uncomfortably. I had them on shifts to conserve their strength and... Forgive me for interrupting, Captain. Kai says this in a tone that suggests he's certainly not asking for forgiveness. But I still haven't heard an apology for Miss Gray. I have to fight the grin that wishes to form on my lips. Tori clears his throat and flicks his gaze down to where I sit. Miss Gray, he says slowly, I am deeply sorry for the distress this must have caused you, and rest assured, I will not let it happen again. Leaning forward, I offer him a thin smile. No, it won't happen again. And rest assured that I am not distressed. My eyes narrow slightly. I'm disappointed. I stand then, letting the chair scrape loudly against the wooden floorboards. As way of goodbye, I add, I trust we will be making it safely to Isram tomorrow. It takes Tori a moment to gather his words. Yes, that is correct. We should be docking no later than midday. I flash him a smile before turning to leave. Good. Kai trails behind, stopping only to throw a question over his shoulder at the captain. Why was an illusionist on board? They aren't easy to come by, especially not one with sailing experience. Well, I requested one from the king, Tori explains with a slight shrug. He would have come in handy if we were to encounter the beast that lurks in these waters, created an illusion for it to chase after, rather than us. The enforcer seems to be mulling this over. And what is it you do, Captain? Tori looks confused before a loud laugh escapes him.
Well, exactly what you said, Highness. Aye, Captain.
Ah, yes. Kai nods slowly, and I study his face, unsure where this is going.
So you're the one who was fearlessly steering the ship during that storm?
Aye, sir. Right up until you charged into my quarters. The captain laughs again, slapping a hand to the table. The shallows are a bitch that I intend to tame. I can only muster an annoyed sigh at his words before Kai is heading for the door once again.
Sorry for killing your men, Tori, but I'm afraid they deserved it, so I'm really not.
Of course, the captain calls after us.
And do keep a watchful eye on your men, Captain.
Kai is halfway out the door when he turns one last time.
I know you're capable of it.
I follow him quickly into the hall beyond, trying to keep up with his long strides. When we turn into his cabin, I finally blurt, "What just happened in there?" Kai shakes his head.
He knew you needed help last night and did nothing.
But the storm, he said.
No one at the helm could see or hear anything on the other side of the ship with that rain, he finishes for me. But that bastard was the only one who could.
The pieces suddenly click into place, leaving me murmuring under my breath. The captain's a hyper. Kai rakes a hand through his disheveled hair.
He could see and hear you just fine. He just chose not to.
I scoff.
That shouldn't even surprise me. I'll deal with him when we get back to Ilya. But until then,
he pats the dagger strapped to my thigh.
This doesn't leave your side, even when you're with me.
I step closer with a teasing smile. Oh, especially not when I'm with you. What if I wish to threaten your life?
Even after I just saved yours?
He says this fondly. I trace a finger down his thin white shirt. Perhaps I have yet to forgive you for chasing me across the scorches. He pulls me close, his fingers tipping my chin up towards him.
And I would do it all again just to hear you threaten my life.
That seems foolish, I breathe.
Then it's fitting.
He runs a thumb over my bottom lip.
Seeing that I am a fool.
I raise my eyebrows at him. You told me you weren't anymore. His lips brush my cheek. I smile when they meet my nose, gasp when they graze my neck.
That was pretend, darling.
Chapter 31. Payton. I've been staring at a speck in the distance for hours. Only now it's grown into a city that stretches before us. A maze of docks splatters the horizon, sitting within the bright blue water. Dozens of boats bob beside them, some larger like the mangled one we're arriving on, though most are small and sturdy. Squinting, I can just make out the large fishing nets that hang from their sides. I breathe in the sea's scent, willing the ship to move faster. With the storm having subsided, gusts now litter the deck, pushing wind into the large sails. I tap a foot impatiently, my eyes skipping over the crew. They avoid my gaze, focusing instead on their duties and the difficult task of ensuring the crumbled ship makes it to land. With the torn sails, missing railings, and splintered boards across the deck, it's a miracle we aren't sitting at the bottom of the shallows. And that is just the damage I can see. Raise the flag! The captain's bellow has a sailor pulling at the rigging, obeying the command. I watch as a white flag rises into the sky, halting beside Ilya's swirling crest that has now been thoroughly tattered. My wandering gaze falls back to the deck before landing on that familiar figure stepping out onto it. Kai lifts a hand to shade his eyes from the sudden brightness, and I can't help but take the moment to stare unabashedly at him. His clothes ripple in the wind, pressing to the strong body beneath. Black hair splashes over his brow like the unruly waves beneath us, and gray eyes, they are suddenly on me. He smiles in a way that suggests he knows exactly how much I was admiring him. Even after striding towards me, the smug look never leaves his face.
Enjoying the view, Gray?
Of Isram? I shoot back with a smile of my own. Why, yes I am, Azur. He leans his forearms against the splintered railing, grinning enough to have those dimples on display. I look away before he can catch me staring yet again. "Why did we raise a white flag?" I ask quietly.
"Isram hasn't seen a ship with our crest on it in nearly a decade."
He nods to a large watchtower that looms over the bay.
"We don't want them thinking we have ill intentions. Just like in Dor and Tando, they won't be too happy with elites showing up."
I lean against the railing beside him, our arms brushing. Then it's a good thing a benevolent ordinary will be greeting them.
"Yes, with a crew of elites," he muses, "and the enforcer."
"And a crate of coveted roses," I add, sounding hopeful. Now, I vaguely remember reading about Isram's queen, Zyla, as a child, but I'm not sure what I should expect.
"It's been said," Kai recalls, "that she is ruthless. Some say she killed her husband for the throne. Others believe he died of natural causes."
He lifts a shoulder in a lazy shrug.
"Either way, she's helped Isram thrive. They rely on the sea and its fish to survive, and from the moment Zyla sat on that throne, their harvest has been nothing but plentiful."
I spin the ring on my thumb distractedly. "And it's been several years since she became queen, yes?" Kai's eyes meet mine.
"Nearly a decade ago."
I took that bit of interesting information away and turned my attention towards the dock we're heading for. A throng of guards stand atop the weathered wood, dressed in royal blue and holding spears. The sharp tips glint in the sun, forcing me to look away from the odd sight. It's strange, seeing such obvious weapons on a guard. Most Imperials don't even bother carrying a sword when they can rely fully on an ability. But the people of Isram don't possess powers. They depend on their own might, their own will, and I admire that far more than unearned strength. The shining points of the guards' spears seem to sharpen as the ship drifts closer. They stand stiffly along the wooden planks, lining the creaking dock with solemn expressions and a tightening grip on their weapons.
They are afraid of us.
I lurch forward into the railing when the ship groans. We slide against the dock, drawing a long screech from the hull. When we finally come to a stop within the port, my wide eyes manage to make their way to Kai's. He wears a familiar expression, one that creeps onto the corners of his features. It's a slight smugness that touches his lips, I realize, a brightening of his eyes and a relaxing of the body beneath. He enjoys being feared. I suppose I would too if even an inkling of his power dwelled beneath my skin. But I'm something less than fear and power and elite. For that reason, I step cautiously behind the enforcer as he strides across the deck. A teetering wooden ramp sprawls between the ship and dock beneath. Sparkling water sways beneath us, lapping at the hull and reaching for the bridge we step out onto. Without hesitation, Kai strides down the creaking wood to greet the gaggle of guards. But he doesn't even make it to the dock. Dozens of spears are swiftly pointed at his chest, gleaming ominously as they inch towards the sliver of bare skin beneath his loosely buttoned shirt. I tense, heart stalling as I take in every long weapon aimed at the enforcer. Though the lack of tension clutching his shoulders tells me he doesn't seem to mind. Still standing behind him, I can just make out the lifted corner of that cocky grin he's wearing. I shouldn't be surprised by this, and yet I want to hit him over the head all the same. Kai lifts his hands slowly, showing his seemingly harmless palms to the guards. Yes, he does enjoy this. Fear is power, and where there is power, there is something for him to wield.
"State your business here, elites,"
booms a steady voice belonging to a particularly gilded guard. Glancing over the golden buttons adorning his uniform, I catch the small pin above his heart. Ilya's enforcer has just met Isram's captain of the guard.
"Easy, gentlemen,"
Kai says smoothly, lowering the tip of a prodding spear with his palm.
"I'm sure this is quite the surprise, but we come in peace. Things are changing in Ilya, so I'm here to escort our future queen to meet with yours. She will explain everything."
Kai gestures behind him to where I stand, stiff and unsure.
"This is Peyton Gray, the Ordinary."
Astonished blinks are the only response to his words. I watch the captain and his guards take me in, eyeing the silver hair I earned from the plague. I clear my throat, uncomfortable. "We brought a gift," I blurt quickly, as a gesture of goodwill. The captain meets my eyes, his own skeptical. They are a warm brown, crowded by the lines that a life of laughter carves into one's skin. But that stern expression solidified onto his face smothers the happiness that once came so easily. And yet, even as a middle-aged man, he's quite handsome.
"You're telling me," the captain says slowly, "that a crew from Ilya braved the shallows just to reintroduce themselves to the kingdom they shut out?"
His question spurs me forward until I've stepped beside Kai and planted my feet before the multitude of spears. "Yes," I say, voice even. "I've fought to survive every day, just like all of you, and I will do anything to see Ilya become free and welcoming again." A long stretch of silence stifles everything but the sound of sloshing water around us. The captain keeps his gaze pinned on mine, though not in a way that tells me he's scrutinizing every disheveled piece of me. I believe it might even be hope I hear in his voice when he orders,
"Lower your weapons, men. We are taking our guests to the castle."
We have been walking for nearly an hour, cocooned within a constricting circle of guards. They barely bother glancing at me when the enforcer strides among them. Every eye is trained on him, every weapon at the ready to defend themselves from the elite that steps straight out of a bedtime story they tell their children. Captain Tori walks beside me, surprisingly silent. I was only allowed the company of 2 elites on this hike to the castle. The rest of the crew was left to patch up what is left of the reckoning that currently bobs sadly beside the dock. I've had plenty of time to take in the surrounding city. It's filled with a quieter sort of bustle than Ilya. The cobblestone streets are even and neat, filled with mindful men and women. Bright blue banners hang from roofs and stretch between wide alleyways. Merchants are kind, children are well-behaved, and smiles are shared regularly. It's an anomaly I find both comforting and concerning. I breathe in the salty air and grant myself a moment to acknowledge the warmth coating my face. The sun seems to shine only for me, painting my skin in a soft glow and wrapping its rays around me. A cool breeze ruffles my short hair, and I shut my eyes, relishing the feel of sturdy ground beneath my feet. People stop and stare at the spectacle I don't doubt we are. I'm swallowed by guards, forced to dodge the piercing tips of their spears. They herd us up another hilly path that has me panting before my eyes lift to the towering castle. I step into its shadow, feeling so small beside the massive stone. The castle is encased in a pearly white stone that winks in the dripping sunlight. Tall towers spring up into the sky, casting ribbons of shadow across the path. Billowing blue flags sprout from the highest spires to display what I recognize as Isram's crest. I lift a hand to shield my gaze from the peering sun and scan the flapping fabric. A pair of swirling fish create a perfect circle within the sea of blue. Atop the rippling flag, it seems as though they are forever swimming around each other, creating a constant balance. A barked order from the captain of the guard has us coming to a halt at the base of several pristine stairs. They ascend towards a milky set of doors that match the steps beneath. Everything about this castle is light and airy, as if the sky hanging low above the water was personified. I watch the captain peel away from his guards and head beyond those towering doors. He walks stiffly, seemingly unexcited about the task at hand. But when Kai's rough knuckles brush against mine, the observation and my accompanying curiosity swiftly float away on a salty breeze. My eyes flick up to find a crease of concern nestling between his brows.
"Are you all right?"
The question is worrying enough to startle one in response. "Why, do I not look all right?"
"Gray, you always look far more than all right."
He says this with a low chuckle, his voice soft enough to slip past the guards unnoticed.
"But I know this is a lot. I want to make sure you're doing okay."
"Quite the gentleman you've become," I croon. Only for you. His words have my smile melting into something sweeter. I'm okay. Just hoping my benevolence doesn't fail me, I say weakly before continuing to whisper. I have no idea who to be or what to say. Better yet, I have no idea how to speak to a queen, let alone be one. He shakes his head, gaze unfaltering. I think you know exactly who you want to be, who you are. His words are like a soft battle cry. You're the leader you always wanted for Ilya. You're our silver savior. I reach for his hand before realizing that I shouldn't. Instead, I settle on a relieved smile and a lingering look in which I'm lost within the storm that is his eyes. It's only when a shadow falls over his face that I rip my gaze from it. Now there's a ship's name. Captain Tori shoves past a guard to invade the little space we have. The Silver Savior. If we make it back to Ilya, I'll need to find me a new ship, and I may just name her that. I glance at Kai, then back to the captain. I'm flattered. Speaking of ships, Kai adds quickly, how is ours looking? I can't help but notice that you seem skeptical about returning to Ilya. Tori blows out a breath that I lean away from. Well, I'll be honest with you, Highness. She's not looking too pretty right now. But I've got the crew on it, so hopefully she will be patched up before we set sail. I'm preparing to ask a few questions I likely won't want to know the answer to when a stern voice echoes behind me. The Queen is ready for you. I spin on my heel, finding the captain of the guard beckoning me forward. The men crowded around us tear away at the silent command, freeing me from the cage of spears. My tired feet carry me towards the mountain of steps, Kai at my side while Tori lingers behind. I spin the ring on my thumb, seeking comfort from the cool steel. The shimmering doors above swing open as we near, and I watch Isram's captain stroll into the hall beyond. The comforting sunlight is stolen from my skin when I follow him into the castle. My gaze widens before gliding across the gilded room. This is certainly not Ilya. This is the opposite of bold greens and dark details. This is teeming with puddles of light and pops of blue. The long hall stretches into a pair of curved staircases on either end, each of which are wrapped in soft carpet. Everything here is gleaming and simple and crawling with delicacy. There is no show of strength, no obvious need for attention, and its simplicity is breathtaking. She will see you in the throne room, the captain informs without turning to look at me. Continuing his steady pace, he leads us to another pair of shiny white doors. The court also awaits you after hearing of Ilya's unexpected arrival, and that's the only useful information I have for you. He nods to the pair of guards framing the doors. The Queen will see you now. My heart pounds as the throne room slowly comes into view. A long blue carpet awaits me, leading all the way to the dais. Windows line the room in a wave-like pattern, bordered by spiraling molding. My eyes flick over the several circular tables littering the gleaming floor that allow the court members to comfortably enjoy the show. But it is the woman seated elegantly on a throne of bones that thoroughly steals my attention. The Queen lounges in a skeleton of sorts, though I haven't the slightest clue what animal it once belonged to. Thick vertebrae create the center of the seat, while long rib bones jut out from it and curl around her. Beneath her tanned shoulders, the bones curve upward to hang slightly over her head of black hair. I force my feet forward, despite the urge to stand and gawk. Even from this distance, the Queen's piercing green eyes seem to cut right through me. I've never seen such a bright color dwell within someone's gaze. It's not the light green of Kit's eyes, crisp and warm. No, this is a vivid, gleaming sort of shade, as if she sees the world through a sheet of emerald. When we halt before the dais, Zyla's gleaming stare turns to Kai when he speaks. Your Majesty, he bows gracefully, reminding me to attempt a curtsy. I apologize for the unexpected visit. I'm Kai Azar, enforcer to Ilya's king,
and I have escorted Peyton Grey here to welcome trade back into our kingdom."
The Queen's eyes flick back to mine, as striking as they are searching.
"I've heard whispers of you, child. You seem much too young to have caused such trouble in Ilya."
She smiles, and I catch the glint of sharp canines.
"I admire that."
"Well, my days of causing trouble are behind me, hopefully," I add with a small smile of my own. Kai steps aside, ushering Tori with him. "I'm here now to help create a new and better Ilya."
"You see," Zyla says slowly, "the last time I heard your name, it was followed by a list of treasonous crimes against Ilya. There was even a price on your head if you ever managed to make it across the shallows."
She raises a sharp nail at Kai.
"Now you're in my kingdom with the Enforcer, and wearing a very shiny engagement ring."
Another smile curls her perfect lips.
"Do tell. You've intrigued me, and that is no simple task."
I lick my dry lips. In short, Ilya is in need of resources. Over the decades, we have exhausted our food supply and overpopulated the land behind our closed borders. With Kit Azar on the throne, he has become aware that the kingdom must return to its more welcoming roots. Ordinaries and elites will coexist once again. I gesture to the Queen, along with trade between the surrounding cities. To encourage this unpopular change, I, an ordinary and survivor of the purging trials, am to marry the king. This will bridge the gap between ordinaries and elites. I take a breath, ready to spew more information.
"And what of your treason?"
Zyla asks, seeming amused.
"Has the king so quickly forgotten how you killed his father? At least, that is what I heard."
"That was a misunderstanding, one the kingdom has become aware of," I state as convincingly as possible. "And I am here to not only prove myself to you, but also to Ilya." She quirks a dark brow.
"Go on."
"I competed in the purging trials as an ordinary. My throat has become absurdly dry. And now, to earn the respect and trust of those elites who despise the idea of an ordinary on the throne, I've stepped into a series of my own trials." The Queen blinks before a laugh transforms her harsh features. The sound is biting against her beautiful face.
"So you crossed the shallows? Barely."
I smile politely. "Yes. Benevolence is the second of the 3 B's by which Ilya's rulers live."
"Benevolence, really?" she scoffs. "I'm not sure I live by that myself."
"Then accept mine," I say quickly. "As a gesture of good faith, I've brought roses for you and your kingdom to use. I hope the many healing properties they possess are enough incentive for you to welcome us." Her eyes narrow in a scrutinizing sort of way.
"They are a gift from your king?"
"Yes, Your Majesty." Zyla's voice is a soothing sound.
"And you know nothing else of it?"
"No," I answer evenly. She sits back, looking oddly comfortable in her throne of bones.
"All I have heard, Peyton Grey, is a cry for help. Ilya only opens its borders when in need of something. Only allows us ordinaries, as you say, into the land when there is no other alternative. And you speak on behalf of a king who—"
"I do not speak for Kit Azar." My voice rings out over the Queen's, drawing a hushed gasp from the court. "I speak for myself, for the powerless who deserve to live within Ilya, not a king." My echoing voice fades from the throne room, leaving only a stifling silence. I lift my chin and force my gaze to remain on the Queen I so blatantly interrupted. But I can't afford to show remorse now. No, I must stand here and exude a strength I don't currently feel. Zyla lets the tension stew between us. Then, another biting smile.
"Still, I do not welcome Ilya."
My breath catches, hope sputtering out in my chest. But I welcome the fact that you need me. The powerful, arrogant Ilya, brought to its knees. My gaze lifts in time to watch the next words fall from her lips. Hear this, child. Ilya has done nothing for my kingdom. We have been shut out and cut off from your coveted resources for 3 decades now. I have no desire to help Ilya out of whatever goodness remains in my heart. But you, her red lips twitch, you remind me of myself. So youthful, so determined. I only hope that drive doesn't darken you. Her words hit a nerve, forcing me to fight off my flinch. Because I know what darkness she speaks of, feel it festering in the gaping hole of my heart where Adina once lived. And for the sake of her memory, her goodness, I shove it down. The navy dress hugging Zyla's curvy form flashes as she shifts in the throne of bones. She lifts a hand, inspecting her sharp nails. So, for you, I will attempt benevolence. For Ilya, I will attempt mercy. Relief floods through me. Thank you, Your Majesty. Your generosity will not go unnoticed. No, I would hope not, she says airily. Now, tell me, how did an Ilian ship survive my shallows? Her obvious possession of the sea has me pausing long enough for Captain Tory to speak. Well, Your Majesty. He steps onto the blue carpet, snatching the hat off his head before sweeping into a bow. I managed to captain the reckoning across the treacherous sea. It was no simple task, but I'm also no stranger to the water. The Queen raises a silencing hand. So, I take it that you didn't encounter the beast? Tori stutters. Well, no, but... Then you have survived nothing at all, she states simply. You may gloat only after you meet such a beautiful creature, and live to tell the tale. Tori opens his mouth, shuts it, and steps back beside Kai. Zyla smiles at this. I'll allow you 3 days to piece back together what is left of your ship. Rooms will be arranged within the castle for Payden alone. She waves a dismissive hand. The rest of you may sleep on your leaking boat. That is the extent of my generosity. I offer a bow of my head, if only to hide the grin spreading across my face. Again, thank you, Your Majesty. Yes, I'm magnificent. Her eyes slide hesitantly to the captain of her guard, allowing me to study her fully. She seems to glow with beauty, making it hard to look away. Her features are a contradiction of young and old, sharp and soft. Everything about her is a mystery, right down to the age she embodies. Adin, she calls, even as those green eyes fall back on me. When her captain appears beside me, I realize that the shouted name belongs to him. He folds stiff arms behind his back, locking his brown gaze on the dais' floor. Escort Payden to her rooms, the Queen orders, and ensure the others make it back to their ship. Adin nods, his eyes flicking up momentarily. Happily, Your Majesty.
Chapter 32. Kai. Rough bark tears at my sweating palms. I cling to the tree trunk, feeling my feet sway atop the thin branch beneath me. Extending my free arm, I wrap my knuckles against the window beside me. She takes her time. Of course she does. I watch a devious smile curve her lips as she strides slowly towards the bedroom window and into the streaming moonlight. She takes a long moment on the other side of that locked glass, committing the side of me begging for her attention to memory. So I stand there, helplessly, gripping a branch while entirely at her mercy. Shaking my head at her cruelty, I will myself not to look down at the gaping span of open air beneath me. Isram's rocky soil grows few plants and even less grass, but I discovered a small patchy field behind the castle on my search for a discreet way into Payton's room. The few trees that sway back here are clustered close to the white stone, one of which even brushes against Pay's window. And now I've climbed it for her. I hear the latch click before she's finally pushing open the swinging glass pane. You've already broken one arm climbing a tree. Do you really wish to tempt fate again? I smile because I can't seem to help it when she plays with me, but also because she remembers what I had told her under that willow so long ago. Kit and I were visiting Ava when that happened, you know. I watch her eyes widen at the confession she could have only understood now. He bet that I could never climb the willow as quickly as Ava once had. And I knew damn well he was right, but you tried. She finishes with a small smile, and landed face first in the dirt. I chuckle and carefully inch closer to the window. It was worth it. I was visiting A, and for a moment, it felt as though she was with me. My words have something shifting in her expression. And if you fell now? Would it be worth it? I reach through the window to grip the sill, my knuckles brushing her hips. Well, I'm visiting you, aren't I? She flashes a worrying smile that has me adding, that's not an invitation to push me, Gray. Her laugh skitters over my skin as I climb through the window, planting my boots beside her bare feet. My gaze falls to the scar peeking out from beneath the thick strap of her tank. This look doesn't go unnoticed, and she is quick to turn back towards her borrowed bed. What are you doing here? I clear my throat. I didn't see you yesterday. Figured you missed me. That's why you climbed through my window? She snorts. Because I missed you. I've moved before even realizing. My hands are on her hips, and I'm spinning her around to face me before my mouth crashes into hers. It's incessant, fervent, relief. She's startled for a heartbeat, but parting her lips for me in the next. I pull her close, feeling her hot skin beneath the thin clothing she wears. Her body melts against mine, and a soft sound slips between her lips that has me gripping that silver hair between my fingers. I force myself to pull away, smiling at her reluctance to let me go. Fine, she breathes against my lips. I might have missed you a little. I chuckle before planting kisses along her jaw. This has a soft sigh dripping from her parted lips, and I'm not sure she knows how much power the sound has over me. I feel her throat bob beneath my fingers. How are things at the ship? I pull back with an amused smile. That is what you want to talk about? The ship? Well, we leave tomorrow afternoon, she says breathlessly. I'd like to know my odds of survival. My voice lowers into something more serious. And if I say that this could be your final night alive? Darling, she flicks my nose lightly, wearing a cool smile. Every night could be my last. The use of my name for her has a ridiculous grin lighting my face. But then she's spinning on her heel and plopping down on the plush covers of her bed. I follow slowly, shoving my now idle hands into the pockets of my dark pants. Well, the ship is still floating, if that's what you're asking. Though, I'm not sure for how long. You don't think it'll survive the trip back? She asks slowly. Only time will tell. She sighs as if I've told her something she has already known. With a beckoning pat of her hand against the comforter, I swiftly obey and sit. That blue gaze drifts over me in the dim moonlight. You. Her finger finds the ring on her thumb and begins spinning it swiftly. You said A earlier. Is that what you used to call Ava? I nod slowly. Yes, it was. That's what I called Adina. She blinks rapidly as if to ward off tears before they form. I guess I'm just not used to hearing the nickname for anyone else. Something in my chest begins its steady ache. It might just be my blackened heart or stained soul. Or perhaps it's the piece of me that belongs to her, and I'm simply feeling a sliver of the pain she possesses. She was my A. My throat tightens. Ava was my Adina. But they don't go far. I gently lift her arm until she's pressing a palm to her beating heart. Your A lives here now. Peyton nods, again and again. Her voice is a choked sound as she blinks back a wave of emotions. Don't leave me, please. Especially not now, but please not ever. Never, I whisper, tipping my forehead against hers. Her breath hitches. You can't leave me. I don't have enough room in my heart for the both of you. I let go of her wrist to cup the face above it instead. Death himself couldn't drag me from you. The morning light on my face tells me it's time to make my escape. I blink groggily while attempting to carefully slip my arm from beneath Pei's head. She stirs when the heat of me slides away, though I quickly replace it with a blanket around her bare shoulders. This seems to satisfy, her breath slowing and body relaxing. A strange sensation tugs on the corners of my consciousness, though I ignore it for the distraction lying beside me. I reach for a stray strand of silver hair and someone clears their throat. My hand is suddenly beneath the pillow, gripping the hilt of Peyton's dagger before I've even turned towards the sound. But when my eyes crash into a dazzling green pair, I'm startled enough to stop and stare. The Queen sits stoically in one of the plushy seats beside the stone fireplace, her gaze gleaming with amusement. Focusing on her pristine features, I feel that strange sensation grow beneath my skin, as though something stirs the mere sight of her. A teacup sits delicately in her palm, its rim stained the deep red of her lips. Sorry to interrupt, she muses evenly. My eyes dart to the still sleeping Peyton beside me before flicking back to the expectant Queen. I clear my throat. You're not interrupting. No? She clicks her tongue at me. I figured you would be a better liar, Enforcer. May I ask why you're here, Your Majesty? This is said with as much respect as I can muster. You may. She shrugs an eerily smooth shoulder. But I may not give you an answer. Of course, I murmur between my teeth. Well, as you can see, Peyton is sleeping, so I like her, you know. She cuts in dryly. Perhaps due to the fact that she killed your father. Because, well, let's face it. Her long nails click against the porcelain teacup. He was a dick. Though I'm a bit jealous I didn't get to finish him off myself. I stare at her, uncertain how she expects me to respond to that. Nearly every person outside Ilia would say the same about Edrigazer, though I have a strange sense that her hatred runs deeper than the isolation of her kingdom. Conscious of my shirtless body and disheveled appearance, I run a hand through my hair. I can't say I was too torn up about his death either. She taps a finger to those full lips. I study her for a moment, taking in the near ethereal glow she exudes. It's startling. Yes, I figured you might feel the same, considering the whispers I've heard of what he did to you. This has my eyes narrowing in a slight show of surprise. I hadn't expected the tales of my torturous childhood to reach her ears across the shallows, but her sigh of indifference cuts through my thoughts. So, does your brother know? I stare at her. Know what? She takes a slow sip of her tea, flicking a finger between my body and the one sleeping beside it. Take a guess. Heat flushes my body, and I keep my voice steady. I'm her enforcer. Oh, I know. She laughs dryly. I just didn't think this was part of the job description. This is the best way for me to protect her, I manage. She is the future queen of Ilia, after all. She nods in a slow, mocking way. Right. Another sip of tea. So, you're in love with your brother's betrothed? Sorry, she says innocently. That's just what I'm gathering from this little interaction. I stand from the mattress and pull a shirt over my head. I'm just doing my duty. Well, she sets the teacup down on the small table beside her. In my experience, there is love, and there is duty. But there's never both. My chest rises and falls quickly. I know I can't have her. Do you? She tilts her head at me, black hair tumbling over her shoulder. It seems as though you've convinced yourself otherwise. I open my mouth only to hear her speaking again. There is love within duty, and duty within love. You can't have one without the other. And yet, she takes a deep breath, her gaze distant. You can never truly have both. So choose, Kayaza, the girl or power, and whether or not she is worth the destruction of everything you are. I say nothing as she waves her dismissal at me in the form of wiggling fingers. Now out. I'll be having breakfast with the fellow queen now. Her sharp words follow me at the door. You know, you are quite the pretty prince. In a different life of mine, perhaps, I would have kept you for myself.
Chapter 33. Payton. My teacup lands on its saucer with a wince-worthy clang. I glance up at the queen, only to find her eerily green eyes already running over my disheveled appearance. She seems content to watch me squirm under her gaze, following each fidgeting movement I make. I'd awoken with a start, as though commanded from my sleep. But there she was, sitting lazily in a velvet chair and sipping from a porcelain cup. I was forced to stumble from the bed and sit immediately at her impromptu tea party. My eyes wander over my shoulder quickly, meeting the rumpled bedsheets I rolled from. I only hope Kai did as well, long before the queen slipped into my room. Oh, he left, she says evenly, lifting the teacup to her lips. I nearly choke on my sip. I'm sorry? The enforcer, she clarifies. Yes, we had a quick chat before I sent him on his way. Didn't want a boy here during our tea time. She says this as though we share a secret jest, as though her last sentence was far more important than the one before. So, I clear my throat, trying to sound unbothered. So you saw him? I did. She gives me a slight smile, revealing the sharp glint of her teeth before the emotion vanishes. I also saw right through his obvious feelings for you. I open my mouth, heart racing and lips forming the beginning fragments of a lie, when she speaks right over my attempt to salvage the situation. But I'm rather bored of that topic already, so we will move on to another. My teacup rattles against the delicate saucer when I set it down with shaky hands. And what topic would that be? So formal, Zyla muses. Practicing for when you're queen, yes? Just practicing to survive, like I always have. Oh, yes. I seem to have captured her attention enough to have her scooting to the seat's edge. Do tell me about the king and that bit of survival. I want to hear every gory detail. Did you really plunge a sword into his chest? Her expression is giddy. And then a dagger through his throat? I did. My ring taps a steady beat against my leg, though you make it sound far more exciting. Ugh. She sits back, her arms draped over the chair. That's because I'm jealous. He was a bastard, that king. I wish I was the one to lure him into death's arms. My eyes drag over her perfect form. Really? Her smile is sharp. You should know better than most that looks can be deceiving, Peyton Gray. On that, we agree, and she's slightly less intimidating for it. How did you hear about me? I venture. It seems the whole kingdom knows who I am, and yet there is no longer a way to relay information across the shallows. Her smile is fearsome. I have my ways. Perhaps one day I will share them with you. Now, another sip of her tea. What about this new king? Do you plan on killing him as well? The queen's words are smooth, thought out, even. Her genuine question has me gawking. Such an innocent sentence has never struck so hard. Of course not. I breathe into the chilled air between us. I would never. She clicks her nails against the wooden arm of her chair, shrugging slightly. Well, if you say so. I figured he was as much of a dick as his father, so... He's nothing like his father. I cut in and try not to regret that decision when her eyes narrow. He's saving Ilya, even begrudgingly. And I will marry him if it means the kingdom is united. She raises a hand, her nails piercing the air. Fine. I didn't realize you trusted him so much. I manage a nod, though I'm not sure I should be agreeing with her. My relationship with the king is strained, and I fear my actions have forever driven an invisible wedge between us. Tell me, Peyton, Zyla croons, her voice a sort of lulling melody. Are we going to be friends? My answer is honest. I hope so. Splendid. She smiles like it's a weapon. I do love a good enemy, but I have no need for any more of those. As do I. A pause. Thank you for your generosity. I hope you find the roses to be a fair trade for it. She stands, signaling the end of this conversation. Her gaze is piercing, as though searching for something within mine. Yes, our healers are not nearly as advanced as those in Ilya. Her words are blunt in a way I admire. Of course, but it seems you've already helped this city thrive without our assistance. She smiles distantly. They didn't want me to rule. And now, here I am, their savior. She turns away, leaving me to watch her glide towards the door. Oh, and Peyton, she turns, her long fingers wrapped around the handle. Don't fear power. Wield it. Perhaps even let it control you. The queen smiles sharply. Being an ordinary is not what makes you weak. It's your heart. I miss land. I say this, of course, around the stale bread sticking to the roof of my mouth. Kai picks at the plate of bland food atop his lap, legs spread out on the wooden floor. My own are crossed beneath me while my back rests against the bed. This has become something of a routine, the two of us sitting on the floor of my humid cabin, talking about nothing in the hopes we will forget to taste the food in our mouths. Kai's gaze lifts to mine. Well, you still have 5 more days of missing it. Thanks for the reminder, I grumble before taking a sip of warm water. I'm not sure if it will be you or this unbearable heat that has me jumping into the shallows. You know, he says genuinely, I can't think of a single reason you'd wish to escape me. Your arrogance is astounding as always, Kai. Thank you. I cut him a glance. That wasn't a compliment. Then don't say my name, and I won't thank you for the sound. The corner of his smile is decorated with a dimple. I roll my eyes, if only to distract him from the blush stinging my cheeks. The sea has been relatively calm, I say instead of something I'll likely regret.
Yes.
He takes a bite of salty beef and twists his lips in the same way he always does.
It's been eerily quiet. I'm not sure that's a good thing.
I nod, having worried the same myself. The heat hangs over us thickly, as though weighing down the waves. Compared to the storms we barely survived on the way to Isram, the sea is strangely still beneath us. The Queen mentioned you spoke yesterday, I say suddenly, surprising myself.
Did she?
I nod. Did she talk about Kit at all? He clears his throat, setting aside the half-empty plate.
She asked if Kit knew about us.
I stiffen. Us?
Yes, us.
Confusion crinkles his brow.
Everything going on between you and me? She saw me in your bed, Pei.
I know, but... I swallow before hurling the harsh truth at him. There is no us. There can never be an us, Kai. Not really. Silence. The words hurt, tearing ribbons of regret up my throat. I can feel the slow shattering of my heart with every day we spend pretending. And speaking the inevitability of our doom only fissures the organ further. Something shifts behind his gaze. Maybe it's hurt, perhaps disbelief. In fact, I don't care what emotion lingers behind the mask he suddenly put up, only that there is one and I'm staring at it. He seems to dull, something I've never seen happen when his eyes are on mine. We promised to have no masks between us, and yet I've forced him to wedge one atop the hurt I caused. His eyes drift from mine. A cold huff leaves his mouth.
The Queen seems to think as much.
I take a deep breath before trying to justify the damage I've caused. Kai, you know it's true. You've always known it was true. This, I gesture between the two of us, is a fantasy.
Right. Pretend.
No, I say sternly. Nothing about the way I feel is pretend, but... I lift my hand, letting the diamond there catch the streaky light. I'm still marrying your brother. And I hate that. He's shaking his head now, and the bite in his voice makes me wince.
And I'll watch you two look down on me from the dais, nothing more than a weapon you can wield, just like the king you killed had.
Disgust drenches my voice. You think so little of me?
I wish I did.
His eyes are icy.
I wish I could think about anything else.
My voice settles into something stern. Hurt hardens me, and I spew the damning truth I've avoided for so long. What did you think we were going to do? Hide for the rest of our lives beneath the willow tree? The words are harsh enough to penetrate his mask. He blinks at me, voice low.
Well, that's where I will be, hiding from the royal couple.
I shake my head. Tears sting my eyes. You know why I have to do this. He laughs, and it's a biting sound I forgot him capable of.
Of course I know. But don't you see? That doesn't matter.
He lifts a hand towards my face before thinking better of it.
I'm selfish, Peyton. I burned your home to the ground just to have you, and now it is all of Ilya standing in my way, tempting me to light a match.
His words are jarring enough to have me stumbling over my own. I'm sorry. You know, I never wanted any of this.
Well, it doesn't matter what either of us wanted, does it?
He leans back, expression cold.
It was all a fantasy anyway. Kit is who you, the Silver Savior, were destined for.
I watch him stand to his feet in one swift movement.
I was nothing more than a distraction.
I follow quickly after him, my expression hardening at the mocking nickname. The words I hurl at his stony facade are far from the truth, but hurt sharpens them on my tongue all the same. Maybe you're right.
You'll find that I typically am, Majesty.
My chest heaves, mere inches from his. It's anger at our cruel fates that has me lashing out. Maybe I should distance myself from this distraction. A muscle twitches in his jaw.
Maybe you should.
Fine.
Fine.
I give him one last withering look before spinning on my heel and heading for the door. but the harsh words he mutters have my feet halting atop the rocking floor.
And what exactly did the Queen ask you about Kit?
I stand there for a moment, hand clutching the door's rough edge. Then I'm whipping around to meet his gaze of indifference with words that are equally so. She asked if I was going to kill him. There was a long pause wedged between us.
And are you?
Again, I say between clenched teeth, you think so little of me?
You know I do not.
My eyes flick up his rigid body. Then you should know the answer to her question. He looks away, crossing his arms over the broad chest beneath.
Good. Because if I have to choose between you or Kit...
I know, I murmur. Tears threaten to wash away the anger I'm cowering behind.
Do you?
Those gray eyes slide over me in that way I'm certain I'll never get used to.
Because I sure as hell don't.
Edric. The king has a knack for deceit. It isn't something one would typically brag about. But rulers are nothing if not cunning. Spinning such a lie about the death of Queen Iris is not the first Edric has spewed to his kingdom. More than a decade passed since nearly every healer in Ilia was generously compensated to spread the lie that ordinaries bear a disease that dwindles elite powers. Though the people needed little convincing to throw out their weak neighbors and friends, most elites were eager to support the purging. Power is a sickness that corrupts all those who get a taste. Edric spends the eve of his wife's death in silence. He does not speak, nor cry, nor mourn in the ways a soul should. Instead, his heart only hardens, without the softness of Iris's countenance. He awakens to something like a stone inside his chest, and a knock at the door. 3 figures stand in the hall beyond, all varying in size. The first is a trusted advisor, Oliver Rowe, who stands beside a young woman of bold beauty. The third sways at their knees, green eyes like the king's, and bright smile like the mother Kit no longer has. The prince bursts into the room, all giggles and childlike wonder. Edric shows him little affection, finding it difficult to look at the boy, who is half the dead wife he loved. Instead, the king sets a colorful map before the child. It is never too early to begin studying his future kingdom, and turns all attention to his advisor.
Your Majesty,
Oliver begins.
I am terribly sorry for your loss.
Iris died 2 years ago, giving birth to my heir. Edric gestures vaguely to the boy. There is no reason to console me now. The advisor bows his head in understanding.
Of course, Your Majesty, that is what I wished to discuss with you.
Make it worth my time, Oliver. You interrupted me in my private quarters. Urging the woman forward, her black hair battling in beauty with her gray eyes, the advisor murmurs,
Apologies, my king, but you will find this to be a delicate matter.
Edric steps aside, allowing the guests to enter his quarters before shutting the door. Will I? Oliver clasps his hands together.
As one of your advisors, it is clear that before we inform the kingdom of the Queen's death, we must ensure that every detail is accounted for, such as the 2 years since Iris's death.
He gives the king a look, as if the two of them share a similar thread of thought.
This is why I am presenting my daughter to you, for marriage.
Edric does not so much as blink. Explain. Oliver's play for power is as unsurprising as it is futile, but greed alone would not have the advisor disturbing him. No, the king silently determines that this awaiting offer must be worth his while. or else it will cost a good man his head.
You see,
Oliver continues while his daughter huffs out an irritated breath.
the kingdom has not heard of Iris for some time now, so it won't be difficult to convince them of a death that occurred 2 years ago. But the people will want a reason as to why they were not informed sooner. That is where Mila comes in.
Miss Rowe looks anything but pleased to be a part of this plan, but she says nothing as her father continues.
You, your majesty, would tell the kingdom that you had mourned their late queen for a few months after her passing. Once the appropriate grieving period had ended, you took a wife in order to continue securing your line. As there are no elite royals for you to marry, a private union to the daughter of a trusted advisor was the obvious choice.
The king listens, intrigued by his proposal. He admires the cunning plan. Oliver, after taking a deep breath, adds,
You did not tell the kingdom of this marriage sooner because your new wife, Mila, was already with child. In order to ensure her safety, your union remained a secret until long after the birth of your spare.
Edric slides a skeptical gaze to the stiffening woman. You already have a child?
She does.
The advisor answers on her behalf.
He is still a babe, barely a year old, and could easily be passed off as your own.
The king considers this for a long, suffocating moment. This is a bold suggestion, Oliver.
As your advisor, it is my duty to aid you.
He places a stern hand on his daughter's arm.
And this is the best solution to your predicament.
Edric turns to Mila, his voice dull. Who is the father?
No one of any concern.
She answers curtly. There is a long pause. The king would laugh if he hadn't forgotten how to. And what makes you think I want your bastard? Oliver swallows. His breath shallow. Mila narrows those gray eyes. The king swings open the door with a stipulation sliding from his tongue. If I am to call another child mine, it can be nothing less than powerful.
He is,
Mila blurts. Ever the protective mother.
no one in Ilia is like him.
This equally intrigues and amuses the king. We will see about that. Mila hands her son to the silencer, hating how empty her arms feel without him in them. The baby doesn't fuss or fidget. Rather, he simply accepts the fate forced upon him. Black hair clings to his small skull, curling around his ears to copy that of his mother. He looks up at the foreign man holding him, and those gray eyes don't stray from the silencer. Well? Edric's impatience echoes through the room. Damien's gaze lifts to his king, looking less solemn than usual and more impressed than ever.
The boy is extremely powerful. I've never felt anything like it.
The king grins. Marrying Mila Rowe will earn him power. Earn him a son he can mold into a weapon. This is all it takes for the king to claim the child as his own. All the power, all the glory. I accept your proposal, Edric says to his advisor, eyes still pinned on the strength squirming in his silencer's arms. He will be mine.